Olivia Chen stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, taking a deep breath as she smoothed down her silk dress. Tonight was the night. After 3 wonderful years of marriage to James Reynolds, tech genius and billionaire, she was finally going to tell him the news she'd been keeping secret for 2 weeks. The pregnancy test had shown positive 14 days ago, but Olivia wanted to be absolutely sure before sharing it with James. Now, with confirmation from her doctor, she couldn't wait any longer. She had planned everything perfectly, a private dinner at home, prepared by their personal chef, with James's favorite dishes. As she applied a touch of lipstick, Olivia smiled, thinking about how far they'd come together. At 28, she had given up a promising career in finance to support James's growing empire. Many had criticized her choice, claiming she was wasting her MBA and her talent, but Olivia never regretted it. Being the perfect corporate wife, hosting important business dinners, and charming potential investors had become her new career. Their sprawling Silicon Valley mansion sparkled with carefully selected art and furniture. Olivia had personally overseen every detail of their home, just as she managed every aspect of their social calendar. Tonight, though, was just for them. "Mrs. Reynolds, dinner is served," called their housekeeper from the hallway. Olivia took one last look in the mirror, placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach, and whispered, "Let's go tell Daddy about you." The dining room was lit with candles, soft music playing in the background. James was already seated at the table, his attention fixed on his phone as usual. At 35, James Reynolds had that distinguished look that came with power and success, salt and pepper at his temples, sharp eyes that missed nothing, and the confidence of a man used to getting his way. "Sorry, just finishing this email," he said without looking up. "The Tokyo deal is giving us trouble." Olivia sat across from him, used to sharing her husband with his business empire. "Take your time," she said gently. "We have all evening." When he finally put his phone down, she reached across the table for his hand. "I have something to tell you," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. James raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Good news about the charity gala?" "Better," Olivia replied, squeezing his hand. "James, I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby." The words hung in the air between them. Olivia had imagined this moment countless times, James jumping up in joy, pulling her into his arms, perhaps even tears in his eyes. Instead, his face went blank, then hardened into an expression she'd never seen before. "Pregnant?" he repeated, pulling his hand away slowly. "How did this happen?" "We discussed this." Olivia's smile faltered. "We discussed waiting until the time was right. I think the time is right now. Your company is stable. We've been married 3 years." "I never said I wanted children at all," James interrupted, his voice cold. "My life is exactly how I want it. A child changes everything." The dinner remained untouched as they argued into the night. For the first time in their marriage, Olivia saw a side of James she didn't recognize, calculating, distant, as if she was suddenly a stranger. He left the house without resolution, claiming he needed to think. The next 3 days passed in a blur of unanswered calls and texts. Olivia fluctuated between worry about James and nausea from her pregnancy. On the morning of the 4th day, she woke to an unusually quiet house. Walking to their closet to get dressed, she froze in the doorway. James's side was empty, every suit, shoe, and tie gone. Heart pounding, she ran to his office, then to the bathroom. All his things had vanished as if he'd never been there. Back in their bedroom, she noticed papers on the nightstand that hadn't been there when she went to sleep. Divorce papers already signed by James, along with a handwritten note. "Olivia, I never wanted to be a father. I've met someone who shares my vision for the future. My lawyer will handle the settlement. Please don't make this difficult, James." Her hands shaking, Olivia collapsed onto the bed. The phone rang. It was Sophia, her college roommate and still her closest friend, despite James's dislike of her. "Liv, are you okay? Have you seen the news?" "What news?" Olivia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Turn on your TV. Now." With trembling fingers, Olivia found the remote and switched on the bedroom television. There, on the entertainment channel, was James, arm wrapped around supermodel Vanessa Duke, boarding his private jet in Monaco. The caption read, "Tech billionaire James Reynolds and supermodel girlfriend make first public appearance." They're saying it's been going on for months, Sophia said through the phone. Liv, I'm so sorry. But Olivia barely heard her. The room seemed to spin as the reporter continued. Sources close to Reynolds claim he's been unhappy in his marriage for some time. The couple has no children. The rumors suggest his wife recently tried to save the marriage with an unplanned pregnancy. The phone slipped from Olivia's fingers. How could they know? Who had told them? And how could they twist it like that? As if she'd trapped James, as if the baby had been a desperate ploy rather than a wonderful surprise. Outside, she heard cars pulling up. Looking through the curtains, she saw reporters gathering at the gate. Her phone was now buzzing constantly with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. In just a few hours, Olivia had gone from being Mrs. James Reynolds, respected socialite and corporate wife, to the abandoned pregnant woman whose billionaire husband had publicly humiliated her. And somewhere inside her, a tiny heart kept beating, unaware that its father had chosen a different life, a life without them. As the first camera flashes began outside her window, Olivia placed both hands protectively over her stomach. "It's just you and me now," she whispered. "But I promise we'll be okay." 6 months had passed since James walked out of Olivia's life. 6 long months of dodging reporters, ignoring pitiful glances, and watching her body change as her baby grew inside her. The mansion that once felt like a dream home had become a prison of memories, so Olivia had sold it 3 months into her pregnancy, unable to bear the emptiness of rooms that once held so much promise. Now, in a modest apartment she rented across town, Olivia sat on the edge of her hospital bed, cradling her newborn daughter in her arms. Little Anna had arrived after 18 hours of labor, with a full head of dark hair and lungs that worked perfectly, judging by her powerful cries. "She's beautiful, Liv," said Sophia, who had flown in from Chicago the moment Olivia called. "She looks just like you." Olivia traced her finger along Anna's tiny cheek. "Thank goodness for that," she whispered, the pain in her voice unmistakable. The divorce had been finalized in record time. James's lawyers had pushed papers through the courts with ruthless efficiency, and though the settlement would seem generous to most, a few $1 million and a small percentage of his non-voting shares, it was pocket change compared to James's billions. He'd hidden assets, moved money offshore, and used every legal loophole his expensive lawyers could find. The worst part had been the NDA, a non-disclosure agreement that prevented Olivia from speaking publicly about their marriage in exchange for the settlement. She couldn't defend herself against the tabloid stories that painted her as a gold digger who had tried to trap James with a pregnancy. His PR team had done their job well, reshaping public opinion until even old friends began to drift away. "Have you heard from him at all?" Sophia asked, taking Anna to burp her. Olivia shook her head. "Not once. His lawyer called mine to say he doesn't want any parental rights or responsibilities." She looked down at her hands, the indent where her wedding ring used to sit still faintly visible. "He sent a document to sign away his parental rights. They're waiting for me to sign it." "Are you going to?" "I don't know," Olivia admitted. "Part of me wants to force him to acknowledge her, to pay proper child support, to be a father, but another part—" She trailed off, watching her daughter's tiny face as she slept in Sophia's arms. "Another part thinks she deserves better than a father who doesn't want her." The days after leaving the hospital blurred together. Nights were endless cycles of feeding, changing, and brief moments of sleep. Sophia stayed for 2 weeks, but eventually had to return to her job in Chicago. Then Olivia was truly alone with Anna, learning to be both mother and father to the tiny person who now depended on her completely. The settlement money sat mostly untouched in her bank account. Olivia couldn't bring herself to use it yet, not until she figured out what her next step would be. Her career in finance seemed like a lifetime ago, and the thought of returning to work while caring for a newborn was overwhelming. 3 months after Anna's birth, on a Ray day when both mother and daughter had slept well, Olivia decided to venture to a nearby park. The fresh air felt good after being cooped up for so long, and Anna seemed fascinated by the patterns of sunlight filtering through the trees. Sitting on a bench, gently rocking Anna's stroller, Olivia felt almost normal for the first time in months. Then she heard voices from a group of women at a nearby picnic table. "That's her, James Reynolds' ex," one whispered, not nearly quietly enough. "Can you imagine? He was one of the richest men in the country, and she couldn't even keep him happy. I heard she got pregnant on purpose, another added. Men like that want trophy wives, not baby mamas. Well, she wasn't good enough for him, clearly. Look at her now, she doesn't even have a nanny. The words hit Olivia like physical blows. She kept her eyes fixed on Anna's stroller, pretending not to hear, while tears threatened to spill. She had thought she was past caring what people said, but the casual cruelty still had the power to wound her deeply. That evening, after putting Anna to bed, Olivia sat in the darkness of her living room and let herself cry properly for the first time since the birth. She cried for the marriage she thought she had, for the future that had been stolen from her, and for the daughter who would grow up without a father. Then something shifted inside her. As her tears subsided, a different feeling took their place, determination rising like a tide. She walked to Anna's crib and looked down at her sleeping daughter, so perfect and innocent. "I'm going to prove them all wrong," Olivia whispered fiercely. "Not for him. Never for him again, but for you. And for me." That night, as Anna slept, Olivia opened her laptop for the first time in months. She searched for her old professor from business school, Professor Rita Garcia, who had always believed in her talents. Then she searched for job listings in finance, focusing on cities far from the shadow of James Reynolds and his tech empire. By morning, she had sent emails to Professor Garcia and 5 potential employers, had researched childcare options in 3 different cities, and had made a list of skills she needed to refresh after her years away from the industry. When Anna woke hungry at dawn, Olivia picked her up with new purpose. "Things are going to change, little one," she said, kissing her daughter's forehead. "We're going to build something new, something that's all ours. And someday we'll look back at this as the beginning of our story, not the end of someone else's." The road ahead would be hard. Olivia had no illusions about that. But for the first time since seeing those divorce papers on her nightstand, she felt something like hope stirring in her chest. It was time to remember who she had been before becoming Mrs. James Reynolds. It was time to become someone new, someone stronger. Chicago was nothing like Silicon Valley. The winters were harsh, the people more straightforward, and nobody seemed to care who Olivia Chen used to be. That was exactly why she had chosen it. 3 months after her decision in Anna's nursery, Olivia had packed their belongings into 4 suitcases, said goodbye to the last remnants of her old life, and boarded a plane with her 6-month-old daughter. Professor Garcia's recommendation had secured her a junior position at Lakeside Investments, a struggling firm that couldn't afford to turn away talent, even talent that had been out of the game for years. Their new home was a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood, walking distance from a park and a daycare center that had miraculously had an opening. It wasn't luxury, but it was clean, safe, and most importantly, it was theirs. "Good morning, Anna Banana," Olivia cooed as she lifted her daughter from the crib. The early morning light filtered through thin curtains, casting a golden glow across the room. Another big day for both of us. Their routine had become clockwork over the past 2 months. Up at 6 a.m., breakfast for both, drop Anna at daycare by 7:30, rush to the office for 8, work until 5, pick up Anna, dinner, bath, bedtime stories, and then, when her daughter was finally asleep, Olivia would open her textbooks and study until her eyes burned. The night classes to update her financial knowledge were grueling after full days of work and motherhood, but Olivia had discovered a hunger in herself that wouldn't be satisfied with just getting by. She wanted more for Anna, yes, but also for herself. She needed to prove that the woman she had been before James wasn't gone forever. "Chen, got a minute?" Her boss, Mr. Patterson, called as she hurried into the office that morning, coffee in one hand, files in the other. Olivia followed him into his office, where he gestured for her to sit. "The Westbrook account. You were right about them needing to diversify. Good call." "Thank you, sir." She tried not to sound too eager. "But I'm still not sold on this green tech obsession of yours," he continued, leaning back in his chair. "It's trendy, sure, but the returns aren't reliable enough for our clients." Olivia had been pushing for the firm to consider investments in sustainable technologies, particularly a small startup called Enervolt that was developing revolutionary battery technology. She'd spent weeks researching the company, even visiting their lab on a Sunday when Anna was having a playdate with the neighbor's child. Actually, sir, I've prepared a detailed analysis. She pulled a folder from her stack of files. Enervolt's approach to battery storage is fundamentally different. Their test results show a 40% increase in efficiency with a 30% decrease in rare earth materials needed. If they can scale up? Chen, Patterson interrupted, you're a good analyst, but you've been out of the game. These startups talk big, but most of them fizzle out. Stick to the established companies for now, all right? That's how we keep clients happy. As she left his office, Olivia felt a familiar frustration. The old boys' network was alive and well in finance, even in a struggling firm like Lakeside. They didn't want innovation. They wanted the same safe bets they'd been making for decades. That evening, after putting Anna to bed, Olivia didn't open her textbooks. Instead, she spread Enervolt's business plan across her tiny dining table and stared at the numbers until they blurred. Patterson was wrong. She knew it in her bones. Her phone buzzed with a text from Minna, a mother from Anna's daycare who had become a friend of sorts. Kids finally asleep. How'd your pitch go? Olivia hesitated, then typed back, shut down. Again. 3 dots appeared, then, their loss. Still on for park on Saturday. Definitely. Anna needs the fresh air, and I need adult conversation. That Saturday at the park, while their children played in a sandbox under their watchful eyes, Olivia found herself explaining Enervolt to Mina and 4 other mothers who had joined their regular weekend meetup. So basically, said Pryor, a former accountant who now stayed home with twins, you're saying this company has figured out how to make batteries that last longer and cost less to produce? Exactly, Olivia nodded, surprised by their interest. And they're greener too, fewer toxic materials, less mining damage. Sounds like something worth investing in, remarked Lena, who taught economics at the community college. My family has some savings we've been meaning to invest somewhere meaningful. Mine too, added Beth, who ran a small bookstore. Not much, but I'd rather put it somewhere that might help the planet than another faceless corporation. Something clicked in Olivia's mind. What if, she began slowly, what if we pooled some money together and invested directly? Not through my firm, but as private individuals. The conversation shifted, becoming animated with questions about minimums, timelines, and risks. By the time their children had tired of the sandbox, a plan was forming. 2 weeks later, 6 women sat around Olivia's dining table after their children had gone to sleep, each with a check in front of them. Together with what remained of her divorce settlement, they had enough to make a modest but significant investment in Enervolt. This is either the smartest or dumbest thing I've ever done, Beth laughed nervously as she slid her check toward the center of the table. Either way, Minna added, at least we're doing it on our terms. Olivia collected the checks, feeling the weight of their trust in her judgment. I'll draw up proper paperwork. We'll structure this as a small investment partnership. Everyone will have clear rights and responsibilities. As her friends left that night, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced since before James left, the thrill of taking a calculated risk, of building something new. The next morning, she called Enervolt's founder directly, bypassing the venture capital firms circling the company. As a private group of investors willing to take less equity for the right to invest in something they believed in, they offered something different. 9 months later, Olivia's phone rang as she was helping Anna, now 15 months old and toddling everywhere, put on her shoes for daycare. Miss Chen, this is David from Enervolt. We did it. The new prototype exceeded all expectations. Stanford's engineering department wants to partner with us, and Suncor Energy is talking about a major implementation contract. Olivia sat down, her hand shaking. What does that mean for early investors? It means the company's valuation just increased tenfold, and the board wanted me to talk to you directly. We're looking for more investment from people who saw our potential early. People like your group. That evening, Olivia called an emergency meeting of what they now jokingly called the Mom Fund. As she explained Enervolt's breakthrough and what it meant for their small investment, the room erupted in cheers so loud they woke all the children. So what now? Asked Prida when they had calmed down. Olivia looked around at these women who had taken a chance on her judgment when her own employer wouldn't. Now, she said with growing confidence, we find the next Enervolt. I've been researching a few other green tech companies that the big firms are overlooking. 2 days later, Olivia walked into Patterson's office and placed her resignation letter on his desk. "You're making a mistake," he told her. "The job market isn't kind to single mothers with employment gaps." Olivia smiled, thinking of the small office space she had just leased, of the business plan for Green Future Capital that was taking shape, and of little Anna, who would grow up seeing her mother build something meaningful. "Actually," she said as she turned to leave, "for the first time in a long time, I'm absolutely certain I'm doing the right thing." 4 years had passed since Olivia left Silicon Valley behind. 4 years of hard work, sleepless nights, and a determined push forward that had transformed her life in ways she never imagined possible. Green Future Capital now occupied the entire 10th floor of a sleek office building in downtown Chicago. What had started as 6 women around a dining table had grown into a boutique investment firm with 28 employees and a reputation for finding sustainable technology companies with massive potential. "Mommy, look what I made." 5-year-old Anna burst into Olivia's office, waving a colorful drawing. Her dark hair was pulled into 2 slightly uneven pigtails, and her knees were smudged with dirt from the playground at her progressive school, where she spent afternoons when Olivia couldn't pick her up right after class. Olivia swiveled away from her computer screen, her face lighting up at the sight of her daughter. No matter how busy things got, Anna always had full access to her mother's office and attention. "Let me see this masterpiece," Olivia said, taking the paper. It showed stick figures of what was clearly their small family: Olivia, Anna, and Luna, the rescue cat they had adopted last year. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Should we put it up on the Wall of Fame?" Anna nodded enthusiastically, watching as Olivia pinned the drawing to a corkboard already crowded with similar artwork. The Wall of Fame had become something of a legend among Green Future employees and clients alike. Tangible proof that successful businesses could still prioritize family. There was a gentle knock at the open door. "Sorry to interrupt," said Mina, now Green Future's Chief Operations Officer. "But the European group is online too. They want to confirm tomorrow's meeting. Can you let them know I'll call back in 15?" Olivia asked, glancing at Anna. "Someone promised to tell me all about the class trip to the Science Museum." Mina smiled and nodded before disappearing. This was how they operated, efficiency balanced with humanity. That philosophy had attracted not just talented employees, but also a certain type of investor, people who wanted both profit and purpose from their money. Later that evening, after Anna had gone to bed, Olivia sat on her apartment balcony with a glass of wine and the Financial Times spread open on her lap. The article, titled "The Green Oracle: How Olivia Chen is Changing Investment in Sustainable Technology," highlighted Green Future Capital's 3 major investment successes over the past 4 years. The first had been Innovolt, of course. The battery technology company had gone from a small startup to an industry leader with contracts across 3 continents. The second was Aquapure, a water filtration system that used a fraction of the energy of conventional methods. And the third, their most recent triumph, was SolarFlex, a company producing lightweight, efficient solar panels that could be integrated into existing buildings with minimal structural changes. The article mentioned her previous marriage to James Reynolds as a footnote. Itchen, formerly married to tech billionaire James Reynolds, and nothing more. 4 years ago, that connection would have been the headline. Now, it was barely relevant to her story. Olivia took a sip of wine and smiled. Progress. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Just saw the FT piece. We're officially big shots now." Olivia chuckled and replied, "Don't let it go to your head. Anna still thinks my most important job is making sure Luna's food bowl is never empty." As she put down her phone, it buzzed again, this time with a news alert. She opened it absently, then froze. "Renewaldies technologies struggles amid innovation drive," read the headline. The article detailed how James's company had failed to produce any groundbreaking products in the past 3 years, while competitors had surged ahead. There was also a small mention of his personal life. Apparently, his 3rd marriage was ending in divorce after barely 18 months. Olivia closed the alert, surprised by her own lack of emotion. There had been a time when news about James would have sent her into a spiral of anger or hurt. Now she felt nothing but a distant pity. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a perfect spring day in Chicago. Olivia walked Anna to school, their hands swinging between them as the little girl chatted about her upcoming role as a tree in the school play. "Will you help me practice my lines again tonight?" Anna asked as they approached the school gates. "Absolutely," Olivia promised, kneeling to straighten Anna's jacket. "The best tree the stage has ever seen, that's what we're aiming for." After dropping Anna off, Olivia headed to the office to prepare for the meeting with the European Investment Group. They were interested in backing Green Future Capital's expansion to London, a move that would take the company truly international. "They're here," Minna announced around noon, poking her head into the conference room where Olivia was arranging presentation materials. And they'd brought more people than expected. The Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund sent a representative too. Olivia straightened her blazer and took a deep breath. This meeting could change everything. 2 hours later, she stood shaking hands with Simon Larsen, the head of the European group. "Ms. Chen, your presentation was exceptional. The research your team has done on European green tech opportunities is precisely what we've been looking for." "Thank you, Mr. Larsen. We believe Europe is leading in several key areas of sustainable technology. Having a physical presence there is the logical next step for us." "Well," he smiled, "I think we can make that happen. We'd like to move forward with the backing. My team will draft the paperwork next week." As the group left, Olivia allowed herself a small moment of celebration, exchanging quiet high fives with Mina and Priya, who had become Green Future's research director. "London office, here we come," Priya whispered excitedly. "And New York after that," Olivia added. "The East Coast has been asking for a meeting for months." The company celebration that evening was low-key, champagne in the office after hours, with those who had children bringing them along. Anna sat on Olivia's lap, sipping apple juice from a plastic champagne flute and giggling when the bubbles from Olivia's real champagne tickled her nose. To Green Future Capital, Minna toasted, raising her glass. And to Olivia, who saw potential where others saw risk. "To all of us," Olivia corrected, looking around at the room full of people who had believed in her vision. "We built this together." Later that night, as Olivia tucked Anna into bed, her daughter asked a question that caught her off guard. "Mummy, Lisa at school has a daddy who picks her up sometimes. Why don't I have a daddy who picks me up?" Olivia sat down on the edge of the bed, her heart beating a little faster. She had always been honest with Anna in age-appropriate ways, but this was the first time her daughter had asked so directly about her father. "You do have a daddy," Olivia said gently. "But he lives very far away and he's very busy with his work." "Doesn't he want to see me?" Anna's eyes were wide and curious, without any trace of hurt yet. Olivia chose her words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that are hard to understand. Your daddy made a choice to live a different kind of life, one that didn't include being a parent. But that choice was about him, not about you. You are amazing and wonderful, and anyone would be lucky to know you. Anna seemed to consider this, like how Ms. Kelly chose to have a cat instead of kids. Olivia smiled at the child's simple comparison. Something like that. But you know what? You have so many people who love you. You have me and Aunt Mina and Aunt Priya and all our friends. Anna nodded, apparently satisfied for now. As Olivia turned out the light, she heard her daughter's small voice again. "I'm glad I have you for a mommy." "And I'm glad I have you for a daughter," Olivia replied, her throat tight with emotion, "more than anything in the world." She closed the door softly and leaned against the wall, taking a moment to steady herself. One day, Anna would ask harder questions. One day, she would want to know more about the father who had never wanted to know her. But for tonight, they were enough for each other, and that was all that mattered. 7 years had passed since that fateful night when James Reynolds had walked out on his pregnant wife. 7 years of struggle, growth, and triumph that had brought Olivia Chen to this moment, standing at the window of her corner office in the Chicago headquarters of Green Future Capital, now valued at over $1 billion. "Ms. Chen, the board is ready for you," her assistant called from the doorway. Olivia smoothed her tailored suit and gathered her tablet. At 35, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that commanded respect without demanding it. Her dark hair was cut in a sleek bob that framed a face that had grown more striking with age and experience. "Tell them I'll be right there," she replied, taking one last glance at the framed photo on her desk. 7-year-old Anna in her karate uniform, proudly displaying her yellow belt. The little girl who had once been her reason to survive was now her reason to thrive. The boardroom fell silent as Olivia entered. Around the polished table sat the 12 members of Green Future Capital's board, a diverse group Olivia had carefully assembled over the years. The original Mom Fund members, Mina, Priya, Lena, and Beth, still held key positions, though their ranks had expanded to include industry veterans and visionary newcomers. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Olivia began, connecting her tablet to the display screen. "Yesterday, I received information about a technology that could change everything we're doing." The screen lit up with diagrams of a carbon capture system unlike anything currently on the market. Developed by a small team of researchers in Montreal, the technology could remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere at a fraction of the cost of existing methods and convert it into useful compounds for manufacturing. "This isn't just another green investment," Olivia explained, moving through the presentation with practiced ease. "This is the holy grail of climate tech. If scaled properly, it could reduce atmospheric carbon levels measurably within a decade." The room buzzed with excited questions as Olivia outlined the potential applications and financial projections. But then came the question she had been preparing for. "What's the competition like for acquisition?" asked Thomas, their newest board member, a veteran of Wall Street who had defected to Green Future after becoming disillusioned with traditional finance. Olivia took a breath. "That's the complicated part. There's only one other serious contender with the resources to acquire and scale this technology properly." She clicked to the next slide, revealing the familiar logo of Reynolds Technologies. A hush fell over the room. Everyone there knew the story, or at least, the parts Olivia had been willing to share over the years. They knew she had once been married to James Reynolds, that he had left her while pregnant, that she had rebuilt her life from scratch. What they didn't know were the private moments of doubt and pain she had worked through, the tears she had shed when Anna first asked why she didn't have a daddy like other kids, the nights she had lain awake wondering if she was doing enough. "Will this be a problem?" Minna asked quietly, the question carrying layers of meaning beyond the business implications. Olivia met her friend's concerned gaze. "No, this is business, not personal. Reynolds Technologies is a competitor like any other." But even as she said it, Olivia knew it wasn't entirely true. This would be the first time in 7 years that her path would directly cross with James's. The thought sent a flutter of something, not fear, not quite anger anymore, through her stomach. "The Montreal team has agreed to meet with us next week," she continued, pushing through the momentary discomfort. "They're considering both our offer and Reynolds's, but they've made it clear they care about more than just money. They want their technology in the hands of a company that will prioritize its environmental impact, not just its profit potential." "That gives us an edge," Beth noted. "Reynolds Technologies has been cutting corners on sustainability for years to maintain their profit margins." The meeting continued with strategies and counter-strategies, potential financing options, and plans for the upcoming negotiations. By the time it concluded, the initial awkwardness had been replaced by focused determination. This was too important to let personal history interfere. Later that afternoon, as Olivia was reviewing the acquisition documents, her phone buzzed with a text from Anna's school. Her daughter had fallen during recess and needed to be picked up. Nothing serious, just a scraped knee that needed cleaning. 20 minutes later, Olivia was sitting in the school nurse's office, gently dabbing antiseptic on Anna's knee. "Does it hurt badly?" she asked, noting the brave face her daughter was putting on despite the tears that had clearly been shed earlier. Anna shook her head. "Not really, but Lily said I was crying like a baby." Olivia smiled. "You know, it's okay to cry when you're hurt. That doesn't make you a baby, it makes you honest." "Did you cry when you got hurt?" Anna asked, her dark eyes, so much like Olivia's own, wide with curiosity. For a moment, Olivia considered the question on multiple levels. "Yes," she answered simply. "But then I got back up and kept going. That's the important part." Anna seemed satisfied with this answer. As they walked hand in hand to the car, she chatted about her upcoming science project and whether Luna the cat would miss them during their planned trip to Montreal the following week. Is Montreal where we're going to get the special machine that cleans the air? Anna asked as Olivia buckled her into the car seat. Olivia raised an eyebrow. How did you know about that? I heard you talking to Aunt Mina on the phone. You said it was super important. It is super important, Olivia confirmed, making a mental note to be more careful about business conversations around her ever-curious daughter. And yes, we're going to try to get the special machine for our company. Cool. Can I see it when we're there? We'll see, Olivia hedged, starting the car. First, I think we need ice cream for that knee. What do you think? Anna's enthusiastic agreement put the conversation about Montreal temporarily on hold, but that evening, after tucking her daughter into bed, Olivia's thoughts returned to the upcoming trip and the possibility of crossing paths with James. She opened her laptop and, against her better judgment, searched for recent news about Reynolds Technologies. The results were interesting. The company had been struggling with innovation for years, but recent reports suggested they were making a major push into environmental technology. The carbon capture system from Montreal would be exactly the kind of acquisition they needed to revitalize their image and portfolio. Just as she was about to close the browser, a photo caught her eye. James at some charity gala, looking older than she remembered, with a strained smile that didn't reach his eyes. The caption mentioned his recent divorce from his third wife, socialite Veronica Hall. Olivia closed the laptop with a decisive click. James Reynolds' personal life was no longer any concern of hers. What mattered now was securing a technology that could help heal the planet and continuing to build the life she had created from the ashes of her past. As she got ready for bed, Olivia paused at Anna's door, pushing it open just enough to see her daughter's peaceful sleeping form. In the soft glow of the nightlight, Anna looked so perfect, so innocent, completely unaware of how her very existence had changed the course of her mother's life. Thank you, Olivia whispered, to Anna, to the universe, to whatever twist of fate had turned her greatest heartbreak into her greatest blessing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, possibly even a direct confrontation with the past she had worked so hard to move beyond. But tonight, in the quiet of their home, with her daughter sleeping safely just steps away, Olivia Chen knew that whatever happened in Montreal, she was already richer than James Reynolds would ever be. The Reynolds Technologies headquarters hadn't changed much in the years since Olivia had last seen it. The same gleaming glass tower reached toward the sky, the same perfectly manicured gardens surrounded the campus, and the same oversized logo dominated the entrance. What had once been a source of pride for her now seemed coldly impersonal, a monument of ambition without heart. Nervous? Mina asked quietly as their car pulled up to the security gate. Olivia smoothed her skirt and gave a small shake of her head. No, just remembering. It had been 3 days since their trip to Montreal, where the research team behind the revolutionary carbon capture technology had been impressed by Green Future Capital's vision and commitment. They had indicated strong interest in Olivia's offer, but wanted 2 weeks to make their final decision. Reynolds Technologies remained the only other serious contender. What Olivia hadn't expected was the call from Reynolds Technologies' board of directors, requesting a meeting, without James's knowledge or presence. Curiosity had gotten the better of her, and now here she was, walking into the building she had once helped design, back when she thought her future was tied to James. Ms. Chen, welcome. A silver-haired man in an expensive suit greeted them in the lobby. I'm Howard Daniels, chairman of the board. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us on such short notice. As they rode the elevator to the top floor, Olivia noted the supple signs of decline that wouldn't be visible to an outsider, the slightly worn carpet in the hallways, the empty desks visible through glass office walls, the hushed tone of the employees they passed. Reynolds Technologies was putting on a brave face for the world, but up close, the company was struggling. The boardroom doors opened to reveal 8 people seated around a massive table. Olivia recognized a few faces from her previous life, board members who had been friendly with James for years. Now they looked at her with curious, appraising eyes, as if seeing her for the first time. Ms. Chen, please have a seat. Howard gestured to the chair at the end of the table. Ms. Patel can wait in the adjoining room if that's acceptable. Olivia nodded to Mina, who gave her a reassuring smile before following an assistant to a side room. Once the door closed, Howard cleared his throat. I'll get straight to the point, Miss Chen. We've been watching Green Future Capital's rise with great interest. Your company's growth has been remarkable, especially your ability to identify and nurture technologies that others overlook. Thank you. Olivia replied simply, waiting for the real reason behind this meeting. A woman midway down the table leaned forward. Meanwhile, Reynolds Technologies has been stagnating. We haven't produced truly innovative products in years. Our stock price has dropped 30% over the past 18 months. Howard nodded grimly, which brings us to why we asked you here today. We're proposing a merger between Reynolds Technologies and Green Future Capital with you as CEO of the combined entity. Olivia worked to keep her expression neutral despite her shock. A merger? Does James know about this proposal? Not yet, Howard admitted. As chairman, I've called an emergency board meeting for this afternoon to discuss the company's future. James will be there, but he doesn't know the topic. We wanted to gauge your interest first. Olivia's mind raced. The resources of Reynolds Technologies combined with the vision and agility of Green Future Capital could be powerful. But working with James again, even as his boss. Why me? She asked bluntly. Why not pursue a merger with a larger company? There must be dozens of CEOs who would jump at the chance to acquire Reynolds Technologies. The board members exchanged glances before Howard responded. Because none of them understand both companies the way you do. Because Green Future Capital represents the future of tech innovation while we're stuck in the past. And frankly, because your track record speaks for itself. Before Olivia could respond, the boardroom door burst open. James Reynolds stood in the doorway, his face a mask of confusion that quickly morphed to shock when he saw who was sitting at the table. What is this? He demanded, looking from Howard to Olivia and back again. Why wasn't I informed about this meeting? Howard stood, maintaining his calm. James, you're early. The board meeting isn't scheduled for another hour. My assistant let it slip that you had a special guest, James said tightly, his eyes never leaving Olivia's face. I didn't expect it to be my ex-wife. Olivia rose from her chair, determined not to be at a physical disadvantage. At 42, James still had the same commanding presence, though his hair now had more gray than pepper, and new lines had formed around his eyes, lines of stress rather than laughter. Hello, James, she said evenly. The board invited me to discuss a potential business opportunity. I had no idea you weren't informed. James turned to Howard, his voice dangerously quiet. What business opportunity requires secret meetings with the competition? Perhaps we should all sit down and discuss this properly, Howard suggested, gesturing to the chairs. No, James snapped. I want to know what's happening in my company. Our company, corrected a board member gently. And that's precisely what we need to discuss. Reynolds Technologies needs to evolve, James. We've already taken a preliminary vote. A vote? James interrupted incredulously. Without me. A preliminary vote, Howard continued firmly, on whether to pursue strategic partnership options. Green Future Capital represents an excellent opportunity. James laughed, a harsh sound without humor. So you're planning to sell my company out from under me? To her, of all people. Olivia had remained silent during this exchange, observing the dynamics with a cool detachment that came from years of high-stakes negotiations. But now she spoke, her voice calm but carrying. Actually, James, I haven't agreed to anything. I came out of professional courtesy to hear what the board had to say. She gathered her tablet and bag. And now I think it's best if I leave you all to your discussion. As she moved toward the door, James stepped in front of her, lowering his voice. Wait, Olivia, we should talk privately. There's no need to involve all these people in what could be a simple arrangement between us. Something in his tone made her pause. She searched his face and saw the same calculating look he'd had the night he left her, a man making moves on a chessboard, not connecting with another human being. What kind of arrangement? She asked cautiously. A partnership, he said, his voice softening to the persuasive tone she once found irresistible. We could join forces, combine our strengths. We worked well together once. We could even be a family again. The audacity of it, after 7 years without a single inquiry about their daughter, left Olivia momentarily speechless. Then clarity washed over her, cool and cleansing. "I'm not interested in a merger, James," she said, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "But Green Future Capital would consider acquiring Reynolds Technologies' Sustainable Technology Division at fair market value. You'd maintain control of your core business while we take the green initiatives forward." Before James could respond, the door to the adjoining room opened. Mina stepped out, followed by a small figure who had clearly been listening. "Mummy?" Anna called, her bright voice cutting through the tension in the room. "Is it time to go yet? You promised we could see the big aquarium before dinner." Every head turned to look at the 7-year-old girl in her neat school uniform, her dark hair falling in waves around a face that somehow combined Olivia's features with something else, something achingly familiar to everyone who had known James's family. "Anna," Olivia said, moving quickly to her daughter's side. "I thought you were working on your homework." "I finished," Anna replied proudly, then her curious gaze settled on James. "Who's that man?" A heavy silence fell over the room. James stared at his child, with an expression of dawning recognition. Anna had the same eyes as his mother, the same determined chin that appeared in every Reynolds family portrait. "I'm an old colleague of your mother's," James finally said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "You must be Anna. How old are you now?" 7 3/4, Anna answered matter-of-factly, moving closer to Olivia. "Do you work with my mom? She runs the best company in the world." James looked from Anna to Olivia, something unreadable crossing his face. "Yes, I've heard that about her company." 1 year later, Olivia stood on a stage in the grand ballroom of the Horizon Hotel, the glow of spotlights warm on her face as applause washed over her. At 36, she had just been named Business Leader of the Year, a recognition that once would have seemed impossible to the heartbroken pregnant woman she had been 8 years ago. "Thank you," she said into the microphone, her voice steady and clear. "This award belongs to the entire team at Green Future Capital, who prove every day that profit and purpose can go hand in hand." From her position on stage, Olivia could see Anna sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. Now 8 years old, her daughter wore a navy blue dress for the occasion, her hair pulled back with a sparkly headband. Beside her sat Sophia, who had flown in for the ceremony, along with Mina, Priya, Lena, and Beth, the original believers who had taken a chance on a single mother with big dreams. "When I started this journey," Olivia continued, "many people told me it couldn't be done. That green technology wasn't profitable enough, that a small company couldn't compete with giants, that a woman, especially a single mother, couldn't build something of real value in this industry." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the audience, filled with business leaders, investors, and media. "I'm grateful to those who underestimated me. They gave me the motivation to prove that the future belongs to those who can imagine it differently." The past year had been a whirlwind of changes. Green Future Capital had successfully acquired the Sustainable Technology Division of Reynolds Technologies in a deal that business analysts had called a masterclass in strategic acquisition. The carbon capture technology from Montreal had become the crown jewel of their portfolio, with pilot programs already running in 3 countries. Meanwhile, Reynolds Technologies had continued its downward spiral. Without its most promising green initiatives and facing growing competition from more nimble companies, its stock had plummeted. 3 months ago, the board had finally removed James as CEO. The business world buzzed with rumors about the company being broken up and sold in pieces. "Today, I'm proud to announce the creation of the Future Builders Foundation," Olivia said, coming to the most personal part of her speech. "Funded with $20 million of my personal wealth, this foundation will support single parents pursuing entrepreneurial dreams, providing grants, mentorship, and childcare assistance to those who have the vision and determination to create something meaningful while raising the next generation." The applause was thunderous. In the front row, Anna jumped to her feet, clapping vigorously, her face glowing with admiration for her mother. "Because I believe," Olivia concluded, "that the greatest innovations often come from those who have faced the greatest challenges. Thank you." As she stepped away from the podium, camera flashes erupted around her. The host of the event rushed forward to shake her hand, leaning in to ask if she'd be available for follow-up interviews. Olivia smiled and nodded, but her eyes were already seeking out Anna in the crowd. Later that evening, after the formal dinner had concluded and the networking had finally winded down, Olivia and Anna walked hand in hand through the quiet park across from their hotel. Despite the late hour, Anna was too excited to sleep, full of questions about the award and the foundation. "Can I help with the foundation when I'm older?" she asked, hopping over a crack in the sidewalk. "Of course," Olivia smiled. "You already inspire me every day." They found an empty bench and sat down, watching the fountain in the center of the park as it lit up with changing colors. Anna leaned against Olivia's side, suddenly thoughtful. "Mom," she said hesitantly, "I saw a magazine at school today. It had a picture of that man from your old company, the one we met last year." Olivia tensed slightly but kept her voice casual. "Mr. Reynolds." Anna nodded. "The magazine said he's not the boss anymore. It said his company is in trouble." She looked up at her mother, her young face serious. "Is that why he looked so sad when he saw us?" Olivia considered how to answer. Since their unexpected meeting at Reynolds Technologies, she had explained to Anna in simple terms that James was her biological father but had chosen not to be part of their lives. Anna had been curious but not particularly upset, accepting the explanation with the resilience of childhood. "I think," Olivia said carefully, "he might have been sad about many things that day. Sometimes people make choices that they later realize weren't good choices, and sometimes by then it's too late to change them." Anna was quiet for a moment, processing this. "Are you still angry at him? For leaving us?" The question caught Olivia by surprise. In the rush of the past year, the acquisition, the expansion to international offices, the growing acclaim for green future capital, she had barely thought about James except as a business competitor. The role pain that once defined her had faded to something more like distant sympathy for someone who had missed out on knowing their remarkable daughter. "No, sweetheart," she answered honestly. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful for the journey. Sometimes people leave your life so you can discover just how strong you really are." Anna nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. "I'm glad you're my mom," she said simply. "And I'm glad you're my daughter," Olivia replied, wrapping an arm around Anna's shoulders. "The very best thing that ever happened to me." As they walked back to the hotel, Olivia noticed a magazine in a newsstand they passed. The cover showed James Reynolds looking tired and defeated, with the headline, "The Fall of a Tech Giant. What Went Wrong?" She didn't stop to buy it. She already knew what had gone wrong for James. He had valued things over people, control over connection, and image over substance. While she had built something with heart and purpose, he had clung to an empire that ultimately had no foundation. The next morning, Olivia woke early to find Anna already dressed and waiting, eager for their planned day at the Science Museum before flying home to Chicago. "I've been thinking about my science project," Anna announced as they shared breakfast in their hotel suite. "I want to do something about clean energy. Maybe something about how the carbon thing you bought works." Olivia smiled at her daughter's enthusiasm. "That sounds perfect." Her phone buzzed with a message from Minna. "Tokyo office space confirmed. We sign the lease next week. Green Future is officially global." Another message followed from the Montreal research team. "New breakthrough on the recycling application. Results exceed projections by 40%. Call when you can." Olivia put down her phone and focused on Anna, who was carefully spreading jam on her toast, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. This moment, this ordinary, precious moment with her daughter, was more valuable than any award or business success. 8 years ago, when James had walked out, leaving divorce papers and heartbreak in his wake, Olivia could never have imagined standing where she was now. The path had been difficult, with moments of doubt and fear that she had hidden from everyone except her closest friends. But each step, from those first tentative investments with the Mom Fund to creating a billion-dollar company that was helping heal the planet, had strengthened her belief that endings could become beginnings if you were brave enough to keep moving forward. "Ready for adventure?" she asked Anna, who nodded eagerly. As they left the hotel and stepped into the bright morning sunshine, Olivia felt a deep sense of peace wash over her. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities neither of them could yet imagine. But whatever came next, they would face it together, stronger for the journey they had already traveled and richer in all the ways that truly mattered.